name system in the tropics. That is when we do these streams, just to give you more of an in-depth look to see what we're looking at and kind of dissect the forecast together. So let's get into it. We had a lot of changes with our 5 p.m. advisory. Of course, the 8 o'clock advisory just came out moments ago, but there were no major changes, especially when compared to the 5 o'clock advisory, where we had it's a couple things named. So first of all, Humberto did strengthen to a major hurricane. It is now a Category 3 hurricane out there in the south central Atlantic. And then we also have PTC 9. This was Invest 94. So a potential tropical cyclone. Let's get into that. So let's take a nice little zoom in here. You can see this disturbance is currently located on the eastern edge of Cuba, starting to bring those far outer rain bands, mainly to Turks and Caicos, but starting to brush against the southern end of the Bahamas there. Jamaica also having a little bit of convection out that way too, but we're waiting for a better defined circulation to happen on this system, and that's why it's a potential tropical cyclone. So breaking that down, what is a PTC and why was it changed from an invest? So this is basically a term that really we haven't had PTCs this season. Last year we had a couple of them, because this is something that when we're waiting for a system to turn into a tropical depression or a tropical storm, it just isn't there yet, right? It's a disturbance. It's not very well organized. So at this stage, we know that it's going to turn into a cyclone. We know that it's going to likely make landfall. But since it's not organized enough, they tag this as a PTC, where they can put some watches and warnings on this and give you a better window of preparing. And that's great. Last year, they had a 48-hour window where they would issue a PTC. New this year, it's now 72 hours out. So that gives everybody a little bit more lead time for getting this forecast and important information. Now, an invest is when we have an area that we're just watching, we're investigating it, see what it turns into, but it's not really threatening land. So again, a potential tropical cyclone, a little bit different. It's basically the stage before we get a tropical cyclone, a depression, or a storm, which we are expecting this to form into Imelda. So there are some watches and warnings, some tropical storm watches and warnings that are now in effect for the Bahamas. You can see those areas highlighted in the yellow. They would be the tropical storm watches. And then the areas in the blue, of course, a little bit closer to where that disturbance is currently placed. Again, the disturbance is in eastern Cuba right now, but the areas highlighted in the blue will start to see the tropical storm impacts first. So they are under that tropical storm warning. And again, this covers the Bahamas. So anybody with interest in the Bahamas, you should be changing your plans now. If you had any cruise plans or anything like that, those cruises, they always find a different route anyway, because this is basically right on the doorstep of that area. Now, when it comes to this system, I want to go back to the basin overview. This is a very tricky system, and I'll tell you why. We have two tropical cyclones, or to-be tropical cyclones, very close to one another. We're talking 800, 900 miles away. And earlier in the week, we were talking about the Fujiwara effect. So the Fujiwara effect is basically when we have two tropical cyclones nearby, and they kind of rotate around each other. It's usually when they're about 800, 900 miles away. Now, this is not occurring at this time, and it may not occur at all. But the Fujiwara effect is when one of the smaller or weaker tropical cyclones basically gets absorbed by the other one to become one, and that's when it doesn't make it necessarily a bigger system, but it will impact the track and the intensity of the storm. It will go through a couple cycles, but right now it's looking like that will not be the case with this system, PTC 9, soon to be Imelda. It's very tricky. And we had some coverage of this earlier in the week with Dr. Nab. So we're going to show you a package as Dr. Nab talked with our sister station out there in the Carolinas, discussing how tricky this is to pin a forecast like this. Let's take a listen.
This particular system is going to be more challenging than usual for the Hurricane Center and all of us to forecast, because there are multiple surrounding weather systems that are going to dictate where Invest 94 eventual, probably Imelda, goes. Get this cutoff low over the eastern US that's going to draw it northward, but at what forward speed? How fast will it get to the coast over the next few days? And then if it does make landfall, which we don't yet know for sure if it will at all, if it does, how long will it hang out near the coast or in inland areas? Because we also have strengthening Hurricane Humberto off to the south and east that is going to get closer and closer. It's going to go between Bermuda and the East Coast. That could have an effect on the future forward speed of future Imelda. So it might be a very difficult situation for us to keep our patience with, because it might be that the forecast from the Hurricane Center comes out, eventually watches and warnings maybe go up for the portions of the US coast, but then either the system might take a while to make landfall, maybe it never does, or maybe it does quickly and hangs around for a long time. Pack your patience for this one, folks.
How does tracking multiple systems like this reflect into the forecasting and when you're able to do this? I know you said it's very complicated, but Humberto being right there, how does that impact how long it takes for y'all to know when it's going to hit, if it does at all?
Well, we know from past history that two tropical systems, storms or hurricanes, that are within several hundred miles of one another can and do affect one another's tracks. And because Humberto is likely to be the stronger and larger system, and it's forecast to be a major hurricane when it is in between Bermuda and the southeast coast in a few days, it could have an impact on the track and what the forecast models are forecasting for the track of future Imelda. And sometimes these systems will rotate around one another, and that might not happen in this case, but it might be that without Humberto, future Imelda would go northward toward the coast, and we would have a little better certainty on its forecast track. But with Humberto out there complicating the steering currents, the forward speed, how far north, and does it loop around, track possibilities for future Imelda are more difficult. Now, we can use a lot of the same models we use when there's just one tropical system out there, but the models have been struggling the last couple of days and up to this point on if future Imelda will make landfall, how fast it will get there, and if it does, how long it will stay over your area.
All right, so great information from Dr. Nab there. We always appreciate him tuning in with our station here as well. You can catch that every Tuesday on our streaming show. Dr. Nab joins us every Tuesday. But he was talking about the tropical steering flow, and I have a map to point out to you here where you can see what he's talking about. So again, we were talking about how Humberto is going to have an effect on this system. Here's Humberto, a major hurricane right now, whereas PTC 9, which will be Imelda, has not yet formed. So, this is kind of like a tug of war, basically, where Humberto is going to try and pull Imelda out toward the east, but at the same time, we actually have a front that's really helping us out here in Tampa Bay that will be sweeping through the area this weekend. And we have an upper level low that's hanging out here too. So that's also going to try and pull what will be Imelda closer to the west. So that's where that tug of war scenario comes in at, where will it wobble more to the west? Will it wobble more to the east? I can tell you with the latest model updates, we are seeing a little bit of a trend toward the west at this time. But when it comes to landfall and how long the system will linger over land, that's when it does certainly get tricky. You can see some of the spaghetti models out here pulling Imelda away and sweeping it with Humberto. That's the one scenario. Probably about a 40% chance of that happening. The 60% chance of happening, at least the way that it looks right now, is that it looks like it will hug a little bit closer to the Carolinas, to Georgia, and kind of get pulled in with that trough that's digging into our area and that front that's kind of protecting us here in Tampa Bay, and that can kind of pull it northward. But then from there, what does it do? Does it linger on top of that area, just bring rounds and rounds of rain as a cutoff low? There's a lot of possibilities in the long-term forecast here, and that's where it gets a little hairy. All right, we're going to go to break, and then when we come back, we will look at some more tracks together.
Weather impacts your life every day. I'm 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins. You can find out about any change in the weather with our 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. Just stream for the latest forecast, any weather impact alert, updated tropics forecast, and take a live look at the radar. Anytime you want, and it's free. It's just one more way we're helping you stay informed, prepared, and connected. Stream 10 Tampa Bay Plus.
Jeopardy is for everybody.
That's amazing. Oh, yeah.
With players just like you.
Paramedic, retired teacher, psychiatrist.
I'm a little bit competitive.
That's the spirit.
Watch their victories.
We have a giant killer.
And heartbreaks.
Oh, no.
The next super champion could be anyone.
It's almost like a superhero origin story.
It could be you.
Oh, wow.
It's all happening on Jeopardy.
Jeopardy weeknights at 7:30 right here on 10 Tampa Bay.
I was driving when an 18-wheeler turned in front of me. I locked up my brakes, bam, slid dead into the truck. Bloody and hurt, I was loaded into an ambulance, and that's when I put out my phone and called Attorney Dan Newton. Dan jumped right on it. He was in my corner the whole way. He fought the fight from beginning to end and got me $1 million.
Involved in a car accident? Call me now at 813-888-8000.
Dan, your awesome team deserves 6 stars. Thank you for winning my case.
Before hurricane season hits, it's time to prep your home. Secure outdoor equipment and generators. Clear debris from around your AC unit and schedule a pre-storm HVAC and electrical inspection.
Those are some great tips, and Cool Today is here to help you weather the storm. For over 60 years, we've been here to help Floridians with their cooling, plumbing, and electrical needs. We can help you prepare, protect, and repair your home. Call 888-40-TODAY.
All right, welcome back. So let's look at the current cone that we have for PTC 9, which will soon be Imelda. So you can see here, if we go back in time, and I don't want anybody in the comments commenting about the Gulf, what its name is. That's not what we're looking at right now. Okay. So it's in eastern Cuba right now, the disturbance. As we move forward into the next couple days, it generally takes a northerly track. And again, part of the reason why is because we have a front that's moving through our area, and that's going to push that and keep that away from the Florida coast. However, definitely could get some wobbles and wiggles in this track. That's not out of the question. But if we did, we would just get some rain, more rain and wind for our friends over in Jacksonville. You can see by Monday, it will turn into a hurricane, strengthen to a hurricane. We're looking at that by Monday afternoon. Again, some of this could speed up or slow down, but that's the current track that we're looking at. And then this is interesting. So the National Hurricane Center has said that they are not too confident and where it goes from there. And again, that's because we have the influence of an upper level low that's going to be tugging on this, as well as Humberto, which is a stronger system out at sea that is tugging to this on the east side. But most models are sniffing out making landfall close to the Carolinas. Now, something to remember, impacts will be felt far out from the cone. You can't just focus on the cone itself. The cone basically means that the center could be anywhere, not just in the center where you see those icons right now, but anywhere that's highlighted there could be the center and where we could see landfall. So that certainly, you have to leave some room for change there as well. But, after that, does it hang out around the Carolinas, just bringing rounds and rounds of rain? And that could be an issue because remember, we're at our 1-year anniversary of Hurricane Helene making landfall here in Florida, but they had big impacts from Helene where they had big issue with flooding in the Carolinas. And a lot of those folks are still rebuilding, unfortunately, especially as you get closer to the Asheville area. And part of the problem here is that we have orographic lifting with the mountains that are out there in the Carolinas. So we could get significant rainfall, of course, closer to the coast, but also those areas that are vulnerable and bruised from last year with Helene. This is the 1-year anniversary of landfall in Helene around the Big Bend region, but remember, it brought devastating effects over to that area as well. So we're really telling everybody out in the Carolinas as well as Georgia, please make sure you have your plan in place right now, because we don't want the system to sneak up on you, right? If your area is one that was hit by Helene and still working to recover, definitely make sure you have a backup plan. So again, you can see that forecast rainfall. We could have anywhere from 15 to 20 inches of rain with this system. All right, so let's go into Humberto, because Humberto definitely strengthened today, which we were expecting. It is now a Category 3 hurricane. And I want to show you the track on that, because interestingly enough, can't get my words out tonight, it is starting to show a little bit more of a easterly pool than what we had before. So future Imelda a little bit further to the west for some of those models, Humberto a little bit further to the east. So very interesting there. Also notice that by tomorrow, this could be a Category 4 hurricane. Big boy. So with winds at 145 miles per hour, yeah, this will be a big system. So will that have an influence on Imelda? I think it definitely could. I know the models are really saying that, you know, it will make Imelda, when it becomes Imelda, will make landfall on the coast. But, you know, I'm not leaving this out of the picture, because, I mean, with a hurricane that size and with that strength, it's definitely something to consider. Also notice that Bermuda is inside the cone, and again, the impacts will be felt. I think this is, you know, something that Bermuda really definitely needs to watch, especially if we have a Category 3 hurricane close by. By the time it gets north of Bermuda, it will weaken to a Category 2. Bermuda's kind of been dodging these systems left and right. I mean, we've had a lot of recurves. Basically, every tropical system so far this season has been curving around that area of high pressure out there. Out in the Atlantic, which has been helping us here locally in Tampa Bay. All right, so there's some spaghetti models. They're in pretty good agreement for Humberto. Again, some of them are shifting a little bit further out to the east, but no major changes with that one. Looking at the two models side by side here, so just to give you an idea how close they are together, there's Invest 94, well now it's PTC 9, and Humberto there. So look at this. I mean, it's a close call. Now, the Euro is definitely picking up on these systems being a little bit closer together than the GFS is, but certainly will be interesting to see how one has an influence on the other. I wanted to bring you to our weather here locally really quickly, because we have that front, as I mentioned, that will kind of push these systems away. So we actually have a weather impact alert that is in effect for our region for tomorrow, just because we are looking at a little bit of extra rain. It's the weekend. We have those winds that are coming in from the southwest. Here we go into tomorrow morning around 5:30, 6 a.m. And look at this, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. That's when we will have a couple good downpours, 10 a.m. across our area as that front begins to approach the region. So a couple downpours not out of the question. May even have to bump that weather impact alert a little earlier. And again, the weather impact alert is just for some pretty heavy rain as you start off your day and move into the afternoon. Could have some thunder out there as well. And then that front will sweep through the area. And I wanted to push this out in time, because look at this. You see that rain that's on the east coast of Florida. That's actually those outer rain bands from what will be Imelda and eventually a hurricane. So that is something that we definitely are keeping an eye on for our friends over in Jacksonville, because if this kind of wobbles over to the coast just a little bit more, they will see more of that impact of those outer rain bands and wind over in Jacksonville. But we're not anticipating a landfall in that area. Landfall would, at this time, look to be closer in Georgia and the Carolinas. All right, so let's go into the GFS model. This is going to look at the different pressure So you can see Imelda and what will be Imelda and Humberto and how the models, I showed you before, the models kind of all put together on one graphic. This is separating them. So this is the GFS American model. You can see they're pretty close in proximity there. This is Monday at 4 a.m., very early. But then the GFS, yeah, it wants to bring its kind of in that Fujiwara effect where Tuesday they want to dance, maybe dance around each other. And then could Imelda get sucked up into that? It's possible. It looks like it wants to bring it out to the east a little bit more. We're going to go to break, and then when we come back, we'll look at the European, which really doesn't have that much of a difference, but we'll look at the European and see if we can spot any big changes there.
I was driving when an 18-wheeler turned in front of me. I locked up my brakes, bam, slid dead into the truck. Bloody and hurt, I was loaded into an ambulance, and that's when I put out my phone and called attorney Dan Newton. Dan jumped right on it. He was in my corner the whole way. He fought the fight from beginning to end and got me $1 million.
Involved in a car accident? Call me now at 813-888-8000.
Dan, your awesome team deserves 6 stars. Thank you for winning my case.
Weather impacts your life every day. I'm 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskins. You can find out about any change in the weather with our 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. Just stream for the latest forecast, any weather impact alert, updated tropics forecast, and take a live look at the radar. Anytime you want, and it's free. It's just one more way we're helping you stay informed, prepared, and connected. Stream 10 Tampa Bay Plus.
And it's like a movie script. It's family rivalry, betrayal, and murder.
They cover America's most fascinating true crime stories.
One way or another, that's an execution.
Absolutely.
Every case.
Who would want to hurt him?
Every clue.
This is dynamite for an investigator.
Every mystery that keeps you guessing until the very end.
Does everyone's jaws drop?
Dateline, 5 times a week.
Watch weekdays at 4 on 10 Tampa Bay.
Windows are created and installed with different levels of quality. You need quality that can withstand the tropical climate. Our installers only install PGT custom windows and doors, so we are the go-to experts. Don't take my word for it. We have been named Best of Tampa Bay 3 years in a row, Reader's Choice in Sarasota 3 years in a row, and nationally recognized as Window and Door Dealer of the Year. Price is what you pay, but value is what you get. Give WeatherTight Windows a call today, and don't forget the cookies.
All right, welcome back. So when we left you off before commercial, we were talking about the GFS model, and the GFS and Euro are very similar, showing how close these two systems get together. So again, little review here. We have what will be Imelda on the left, Humberto on the right, and they are very close approach as we get into Tuesday, nearing landfall. Could it push it into the coast? But then watch this. This is the American model. As Humberto kind of skirts away into the Atlantic, it looks like it's kind of acts like a magnet, pulling what will be Imelda away from the East Coast. Still making landfall though, right? All right, so let's check out the European. You're gonna see a similarity here. Here they come, close together. This is Tuesday, but then check this out. This is interesting. So as Humberto races off to the northeast, it looks like what will be Imelda hangs out closer to Georgia and South Carolina, where Humberto kind of pushes it the other way. And we also have that area high pressure that's trying to, or that ridging that's trying to nose in from the north there as well. So it will definitely be interesting to see how those two play out. We also mentioned earlier how today is the anniversary, the 1-year anniversary from Hurricane Helene. Of course, we had major storm surge across our area, and this is very important, especially when you look at systems that are on the way. Again, none of these are impacting Tampa Bay, but on this 1-year anniversary, Helene was the center of this system was well offshore from our area, but we had so much storm surge. We heard from many of you that are still rebuilding 1 year later, and some of you were, honestly caught off guard because you said, I've been living here all my life, or I've been living here for 35 years and I never saw flooding and surge like I saw with Hurricane Helene. Well, part of the problem with Helene is as that system moved up to the north and rode along the coast by a couple hundred miles off the shore, that counterclockwise pushed all of that water up on the shorelines, and that's where we got that surge. And it does not take a lot for surge to happen in our area. The Gulf is very shallow, and we're really close to sea level here on land. So, you know, it really doesn't take much for a system, but this was a setup where as that system traveled up to the north, those counterclockwise winds pushed all of that water on shore. So it was not a good setup for us whatsoever. Just a reminder, I don't know if anybody wants to be reminded of this, but this is some of the surge numbers that we had locally from Helene. So, of course, Helene made landfall in the Big Bend area around Perry, to southwest of Perry, I believe. But we still had 6 to 9 feet at least of surge across our northernmost counties, 5 to 7 feet closer to Hillsborough and Pinellas County, and then 4 to 6 feet in Manatee and Sarasota counties. All right, so what do we have looking ahead? Tropical outlook this is put out by the Climate Prediction Center. And surprise, surprise, the main development region could see a little bit more activity. Remember, hurricane season does not end until November 30th, so we still have some time to go. We have been pretty lucky here in Tampa Bay this season. Overall, most of us have been lucky. However, we are watching these two systems now for our friends over in the Carolinas. And then after that, the Caribbean could start to get a little bit more interesting as we move into the second week of October. Now, these could also be Pacific storms, but remember,